What's going on, baseball fans? How are we doing? So it has been a wackadoodle past couple of days. All of the free agents have been signing, and we're about to go into a lockout. But that doesn't stop me fantasizing about some possible trades. And in this video, I'm going to tell you the trades that I want to see this offseason. Let's go talk about it. Let's start this list off with a bang. I have Marte going to the Toronto Blue Jays, and going to the Diamondbacks, I have Jordan Groshans, Peyton Burdick, and Jake Eder. And going to the Marlins, I have Lourdes Gurriel Jr. Let's talk about this trade here. For the Blue Jays, hey, you're losing Marcus Semien. Let's go out there and just go get yourself another bat, an electric bat in a Marte. He can slide nicely into second base. Kevin Biggio can move over to third. I think he would be a great fit in this lineup. He can also play some outfield, so if George Springer is having some injuries or whatever it may be, he can go out there and slide right in. Marte, yes, he did have his injuries last year, but when he's healthy, this guy is as electric as they come. Going to the Marlins, I have Lourdes Gurriel Jr. Had himself a pretty solid season with the Blue Jays last year. Hit 276, a 319 on base, 21 homers, 84 RBIs. The Marlins could definitely use a bat. I think he would fit in nicely there. And going back to the Diamondbacks in this trade, you have some pretty good prospects. Jordan Groshans to start things off. Their number 3 prospect overall. If we take a look at his numbers down in the minors last year, had a 367 on base, a 291 average, only 7 home runs, 40 RBIs. So you could definitely see a little bit more room for some power there. But Jordan Groshans, he's a really solid guy, and I think he would fit nicely in the Diamondback system, whether or not he stays at short or ends up moving to third. From the Marlins, we have Peyton Burdick. He had himself, pretty nice season in the minor leagues last year. Had a 367 on base, only hit 224, but had 23 home runs. That'd be a nice power on base bat to put in your system. And then you're getting a guy in Jake Eder, where, he had a good season last year in the minor leagues in Double-A, 15 starts, a 1.77 ERA. I think Jake Eder would fit in nicely to that system. Overall, I think this trade helps all teams involved. In my next trade, let's say the Diamondbacks don't want to start trading away guys and they want to start adding some guys. For this one, I have them getting Matt Chapman from the Oakland A's, and going back to Oakland, I have Slade Cecconi, Drew Ellis, and Blake Walston. I think Matt Chapman would be a huge upgrade at third base for the Arizona Diamondbacks. You have Josh Rojas slated there as of right now, but he's versatile. So is Marte. You can move some of these guys around. I think Matt Chapman, he would really improve the defense for the Diamondbacks. If we go take a look here at where they ranked defensively among third basemen last year, let's take a look here. In the defensive rankings, Arizona only ranked 18th in defense at third base last year, and we all know Matt Chapman is incredible on defense. He had a bit of a down season offensively last year, did hit for some home runs, 27 homers, 72 RBIs, but a low batting average of 210. He's always kind of been a low batting average kind of a guy. You would like that on base to get a little better, but the 27 home runs, 72 RBIs, that is very nice to add to your lineup. But with Matt Chapman, you're getting a great glove. He is going to improve that defense for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think he would be a great fit. And going back to the Oakland A's, Blake Walston first off, he had the number 4 prospect for the Arizona Diamondbacks as of right now. He did miss 2020, didn't really pitch at all just because of the shutdown in the minor leagues. But overall, last year, 19 starts, a 3.76 ERA, 117 strikeouts, over 95 and 2/3 innings. I think he would be a nice addition for the Oakland A's. Also, there's Slade Cecconi. Got a good fastball, a plus fastball. Last year, 12 starts, a 4.12 ERA, 63 Ks, over 59 innings. And then there's also Drew Ellis. Had a bit of a cup of coffee last year in the major leagues. Had 28 games. Didn't really do too much, but he's had some good seasons in the minor leagues, hitting some home runs, driving in runs, a 294 average in 2021 at AAA over those 81 games, a 399 on base. I think Drew Ellis would be a nice replacement for Matt Chapman. And the ultimate goal here for the Oakland A's is they're just trying to cut costs. They're probably going to be moving somewhere soon, most likely Las Vegas. They're just trying to cut payroll wherever they can. I think Matt Chapman would be a great fit for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Let's stay out west and do a doozy of a trade between the LA Dodgers and the Tampa Bay Rays. Going to the Dodgers, I have Tyler Glasnow and Andrew Kittredge. Going back to the Tampa Bay Rays, I have them getting Andy Pages, Ryan Pepio, and Clayton Beeter. I think this would be an awesome move for the LA Dodgers. Tyler Glasnow, we all know, had to get Tommy John surgery, but before then, he was having a very good season. I mean, hey, you can say what you want about the sticky stuff, whatever that might have been hurt, that probably it was helping him. He even admitted it as much. But Tyler Glasnow, he is a very talented pitcher. Guy's got an awesome fastball, good off-speed stuff. I think Tyler Glasnow, when healthy, is one of the better pitchers in the game. Had a good season last year through 14 starts, a 2.66 ERA, 2.77 FIP, over 12 strikeouts per 9. This guy was just on. It's a shame that he had to go down and get Tommy John surgery. But for the Tampa Bay Rays, hey, we all know the Tampa Bay Rays. They're always trying to cut costs whenever they can. Tyler Glasnow is going to be a free agent in a couple of years. He's going to be only really going to have one season before he hits free agency. If you're the Tampa Bay Rays, you might want to really consider maybe trading him. I think a lot of teams will be intrigued, and I think one team that would be intrigued are the LA Dodgers. Hey, if they can add some good starting pitching any way they can, they're going to do it. And hey, they did it with Tommy Kahnle. They signed him as a free agent last year. He had to get Tommy John. He didn't even pitch this year. They signed him to a 2-year deal. He's going to be back this season. Do the same thing with Tyler Glasnow. And you're also going to be getting a really good pitcher for the bullpen in Andrew Kittredge. He had himself an awesome season last year, a 1.88 ERA, over 71 2/3 innings. The Dodgers, hey, they could use another bullpen arm. Who knows what's going to be happening with Kenley Jansen, and they're going to be losing Joe Kelly as well. I think adding a good arm like that for the bullpen would be huge for them. And for the Rays, hey, they're just doing what the Rays do, and they're adding prospects in this trade. The number 2 prospect for the Dodgers, Ryan Pepio, also Andy Pages, who has been in trade rumors in the past. He was almost traded when everything was going on with Mookie Betts there. They had a trade on with the Angels that ended up getting axed. So Andy Pages, he's always a trade candidate for the Dodgers. And then there's Clayton Beeter, who was just drafted not too long ago, had 28 games last year, a 3.44 ERA. Hey, not bad numbers at all. 78 strikeouts over 52 1/3 innings. Actually, let me go back here to Andy Pages. He had himself a good season last year. Overall, hit 265, 31 home runs, 88 RBIs, a 394 on base. Are you kidding me? Ryan Pepio, the one thing with him, he is the number 2 prospect as of right now. Didn't have a great season last year, a 4.62 ERA. He got hit with the walks a little bit. 47 walks over 101 1/3 innings. He needs to get those walks down, but Tampa Bay, hey, they can develop their pitchers very well. I think he would be a good fit in that system. Overall, I think this would be just an awesome trade. You would have, for the Dodgers, they're in win-now mode. You would get him back for next season, but at least for this season in this trade, you're getting Andrew Kittredge, who's going to help out your bullpen. And hey, Tyler Glasnow, maybe he could be back at the end of the season, so if the Dodgers, where they should be in the playoff race, definitely competing for a NL West crown, or at least a wild card. Maybe Glasnow can come back for the last month of the season, help them out in the playoffs. I think that would be awesome. Overall, I think this would be a good trade for both sides. Yeah. Speaking of the Tampa Bay Rays and that American League East, let's stay there. I have a blockbuster of a trade here. Going to the Milwaukee Brewers, I have Bryan Reynolds. Going to the Boston Red Sox, I have Josh Hader. And going to the Pittsburgh Pirates, I have a package of Luis Urias, Garrett Mitchell, Bobby Dahlbeck, and Brayan Bello. This trade is an absolute blockbuster. 99.9% chance this is not going to happen. Bryan Reynolds, though, his name is always in the rumor mill. Josh Hader, his name is always in the rumor mill. Let's just put together here a fun blockbuster trade. I think this would help all sides. Actually, if I were the Pittsburgh Pirates, I would want to hang on to a Bryan Reynolds, but just because this guy's name is always out there, let's just make something of it. For the Milwaukee Brewers, they really need to improve in the offense. If we take a look at the offense overall for the Brewers last year, only ranked 22nd, and that was, I mean, before they even got Adames for shortstop, they were even worse. So the fact that they were only 22nd, even with Adames, I mean, that really shows that offense needs to get better. Bryan Reynolds would be a huge upgrade. What a season he had last year. Only 26 years old, about to turn 27, hit 302, 24 home runs, a 142 WRC+. This guy was one of the most underrated players in the game last year. For the Milwaukee Brewers, they are only projected to be ranked 28th for right field. Tyrone Taylor projected to have that spot for next season, or Jackie Bradley Jr. Either way, neither of those guys are a good option. I think Bryan Reynolds would be a huge upgrade for the Milwaukee Brewers outfield. Going to the Red Sox would be Josh Hader. They really need a guy for that bullpen. That bullpen completely thinned out towards the end of the season. Matt Barnes struggled, lost the closer role. You could tell that bullpen in the playoffs, it just ran out of gas. A guy like Josh Hader would be huge for the Red Sox. A shutdown arm. Look at the stats. Right around 59 innings, 1.23 ERA, a 1.69 FIP. Look at the strikeouts per nine, almost 16 strikeouts per nine right there. And going back to the Pittsburgh Pirates, you just have some good young players here. Bobby Dahlbeck hit a lot of home runs last year, but with Tristan Casas coming up eventually, maybe they bring Kyle Schwarber back. I think Bobby Dahlbeck is expendable. Also, for the Pirates, you're getting a young shortstop in Luis Urias. If we could take a look at his numbers right here, hit 249 last year, 23 home runs, a 345 on base. He's only 24 years old. You could slide this guy in at short. O'Neal Cruz can move to an outfield spot, which a lot of scouts think he would be better just because of his size, and he has a good arm. I like those two going to the Pirates. Brayan Bello, hard-throwing pitcher for the Red Sox right now. Go back for the Pittsburgh Pirates system. That would be a nice pitcher to add. And then Garrett Mitchell. I think Garrett Mitchell, the number one prospect for the Brewers right now. This guy's uber athletic, a 388 on base last year, 8 home runs, 30 RBIs, 258 average. Nothing crazy, but the 388 on base is very promising. If we actually take a look at his breakdown, the majority of those numbers came from the high A level. Double A, not as good, but Garrett Mitchell, there's a lot to like with him. Take a look here at 55 hit tool, 50 power, 70 run, one of the most athletic players in the 2020 draft, a really good arm. He's good in the field. Garrett Mitchell would be a huge addition for the Pittsburgh Pirates system. But overall, if the Milwaukee Brewers were able to get someone like a Brian Reynolds, that would be huge for that outfield. I would love to. This won't happen, but I would love to see it happen. For my next trade, let's shift over to the National League East. I have the Phillies getting Whit Merrifield, and going back to the Royals, I have them getting Nick Maton and Ethan Wilson. I think this would be a good addition for the Phillies. I think Whit Merrifield, he can go play center field for the Phillies. He's played center field in his career before. Not as much as other positions, but he has played a total of 70 games there in his career. If we actually take a look at his numbers there, overall, not bad numbers. 4 defensive runs saved in his career out in center field for the Royals. I think he would be a nice fit there. For the Phillies, if we take a look, they're only projected to be 29th this coming year. As of right now, they're slated to have Roman Quinn and Mickey Moniak out in center. They need an upgrade there. Someone like a Whit Merrifield would be a nice boost, especially near the top of the lineup. If we take a look here at his numbers, hit 277, 10 home runs. But look at the stolen bases, actually. 40 stolen bases last year. That would provide some speed for the Phillies. Bit of a spark plug at the top of that lineup. And they're going to need it because overall, they only ranked 25th last year in center field production. And like I said, only going to be projected to be 29th this year. So Whit Merrifield, I think, would be a good addition. Going back to the Royals, we have Nick Maton right now. He's had a little bit of time in the major leagues, 52 games, a 256 average. But for him, he can go back to the Royals. He can take over at second base. And they also have some younger infielders in their system as well if they want to start getting some younger guys up. So Nick Maton would be just a nice piece to add for your system. But then there's also Ethan Wilson. If we take a look at him, as of right now, he is the number 7 prospect in the Phillies system. Not great numbers last year overall. Only a 282 on base, only hit 215. So maybe a change of scenery for him could do him some good. He has a 55 hit tool, 50 power tool. So there is some ability there with an Ethan Wilson. So overall, just could be a nice addition for the Royals system. I think Whit Merrifield would greatly help the Phillies this year. In my next trade, I have the Cincinnati Reds acquiring Jo Adell, Sam Bachman, and Elvis Peguero from the LA Angels. And going back to the Angels, I have them getting Sonny Gray. Despite the Angels having a phenomenal season from Shohei Ohtani last year and them acquiring Noah Syndergaard and Michael Lorenzen, I still think they could use another starting pitcher, and I think Sonny Gray would be phenomenal. Despite Shohei Ohtani having a great season this past year, he's had some injury concerns in the past. Noah Syndergaard, he's coming off of Tommy John surgery, and Michael Lorenzen, not a great season last year. Sure, Patrick Sandoval had a pretty good season last year, but only 25 years old. Is he going to be able to take a step forward? Jose Suarez had a pretty decent year last year, but can he take a step forward as well? I think getting someone like a Sonny Gray would just make a lot of sense. Over 26 starts, had a very good season last year, 3.99 FIP, a 2.4 wins above replacement. And I actually want to point out one thing here, and I'm going to give some credit here to Jolly Olive. He made a video about Patrick Sandoval saying one thing he pointed out in the video was that he gives up soft contact a lot, and that really works with that LA Angels defense, even though it wasn't a great defense last year. Well, I want to point out this. Sonny Gray, he ranked 13th last year in soft contact percentage. So Sonny Gray, I think he would also work really well with that LA Angels defense. And you know what? Again, I just think they really could use another starting pitcher, another sure thing starting pitcher with Sonny Gray. He's been able to log some pretty good innings over his career. So I think a middle of the rotation guy, I think he would be a nice fit. And going back to the Reds, you're having to pay a pretty hefty price here. Former #1 prospect Jo Adell, he has struggled with the Angels so far in his career. If we go take a look so far, over 73 games so far in his major league career, he's only hit 205 with a 255 on base and a 339 slugging. The Reds, they could use another outfielder, so maybe a change of scenery would be good for Jo Adell. They would also be getting Sam Bachman, the #2 prospect. They just drafted him this past year, #9 overall, big fastball. I'm sure the Reds, they love fastballs. They love their big fastballs. He would be a welcome addition for that organization. And they would also be getting one more prospect in Elvis Peguero, another guy who has a big fastball, 60 fastball, decent slider, projects to be more of a bullpen guy. But I think these three guys going back to the Reds and the Angels getting a Sonny Gray, I think it just makes a lot of sense for both sides. Up next, I have the Baltimore Orioles acquiring Mark Vientos, David Peterson, and Alex Ramirez from the New York Mets. And going back to the Mets, I have them getting John Means. Sure, the Mets just added a guy named Max Scherzer. I'm not sure if you've heard of him or not. He's pretty good. He's going to go along with Jacob deGrom at the top of the rotation, but I still think the Mets could use a dependable starting pitcher, especially a lefty, considering they don't have a lefty in their starting rotation as of right now. To me, despite having a very good 1-2 punch at the top of the rotation, this rotation still has some question marks to me. Jacob deGrom, he was not able to finish last year, had a lot of issues with the arm. Max Scherzer had a dead arm come playoff time this past year. Taijuan Walker, a rough second half. Carlos Carrasco, he was coming back from injuries last year, didn't do very well at all last year when he was pitching, and he just had a procedure done on his elbow. He should be ready for spring training, but what are you going to get out of him? I think with a guy like John Means, I think that could be a pretty good fit. 26 starts last year, had the no-hitter last year. Sure, he had the sticky stuff, but you know what? I think John Means, he's a pretty talented guy. 3.62 ERA. That FIP is a full run higher at 4.62, but I think John Means would actually work really, really well at Citi Field. If we take a look at John Means, he actually ranked 4th overall in fly ball percentage, 47.4%. If we take a look with Citi Field, the Mets ranked 13th in home runs last year, but if you take a look at the Baltimore Orioles, 2nd in the most home runs given up. I think John Means, he would play better at that stadium. But let's take a look at the package that would be going back to the Baltimore Orioles. And I think this is a package that I think the Mets, sure, they need to rebuild that farm system a little bit more, but I think this is a package you can kind of get over a bit. Mark Vientos, he's the #6 prospect as of right now, 3rd base prospect. Good amount of power from him, a 60 power tool, only a 45 hit tool. But with a Brett Beatty right there, I mean, Mark Vientos is kind of blocked at the moment. Alex Ramirez, more of a potential kind of a guy at this point, 50 hit, 50 power, 55 run. So definitely a bit of athleticism there. But with an Alex Ramirez, he's definitely more potential as of right now. If we take a look last year, hit 258, 5 homers, 35 RBIs, 16 stolen bases, a 326 on base. So that was in single A. I still think he has a ways to go, but I think you would be okay moving on from an Alex Ramirez. And then you would also be getting David Peterson, who as of right now is projected to be in AAA for the New York Mets. If we take a look at David Peterson, didn't have a great year last year, 5.54 ERA over the 66 innings. I think David Peterson could use a change of scenery. Maybe the Baltimore Orioles, you're not really going to be doing much next year. Maybe he can find his way with the Orioles. Overall, I think this trade makes sense for both sides. Let's shift back to the Oakland A's. They are cleaning house, and this time they are trading away Sean Manaea, going to the Minnesota Twins, and going back to the Oakland A's. I have Jordan Balazovic and Randy Dobnak. Now, I know I had the trade earlier with Byron Buxton, but let's say they wanted to hang on to Byron Buxton, try and, actually get him locked up to an extension, and they want to bring in some starting pitching, help them, try and bounce back for next season. Still a pretty talented team with Minnesota. You still got some good pieces in that offense. You got some potential in that starting rotation. Bailey Ober, Joe Ryan had a, pretty good second half last year for the Minnesota Twins. You got some decent options in that bullpen. It's not a bad team by any means. They definitely just need some starting pitching. In this trade, they will be giving up Randy Dobnak, but look at those numbers last year. 7.64 ERA over those 50 innings. Sounds like he needs a change of scenery. Luckily for the Oakland A's, this guy is extremely cheap. He's on a 5-year, $9.25 million contract. That sounds like an Oakland A's contract if you ask me. That's extremely cheap. So maybe they can figure out something with him. But the talk here is Sean Manaea going to the Twins. This guy's been very dependable. Overall, last year, 32 starts, 180 innings, right around there, 3.91 ERA, a 3.66 FIP. Just a dependable guy to put in your rotation. So basically, we're switching out Randy Dobnak with Sean Manaea. And hey, that's not a bad-looking rotation if you ask me. Manaea, Bailey Ober, Joe Ryan, maybe you can go add someone in free agency, and you're back in business. But you're also getting, if for the Oakland A's, you're getting Jordan Balazovic, the number 3 prospect, who I think you can say maybe he's a bit expendable now, considering they did get Simeon Woods Richardson. So, hey, Jordan Balazovic, not a bad guy to add for your system. Last year in Double-A, a 3.62 ERA, 102 strikeouts over 97 innings. So, hey, this would be a nice option for the Oakland A's down the road. Overall, I think Sean Manaea could be a good fit for the Twins if they decide they want to try and compete in 2022. Up next, I have the Houston Astros getting Ian Happ from the Chicago Cubs, and going back to the Cubs, I have them getting Chas McCormick, Joe Perez, and Forrest Whitley. I think the Astros, they could use a bat. If Carlos Correa is on his way out of town, they could use an upgrade in center field. I mean, Chas McCormick, I don't mind him, but I think you could do better, especially if you're losing a bat like Correa's. Let's try and make an upgrade. Ian Happ, hey, he had a bit of a rough first half last year. In 76 games, only hit 183. But if we take a look at the second half, overall in 71 games, he hit 268 with 16 homers and 43 RBIs. But if we actually take a look at the last month of the season, he hit 317, 8 home runs, 24 runs driven in. Ian Happ really figured it out in the second half after a very bad first half. So I think he would be a nice addition for this Astros lineup. He's a switch hitter. I think that would be very nice. And for the Cubs, you're trying to plan for the future here. In return, you're getting Chas McCormick. He's a young outfielder, but also you're getting a couple of pretty decent prospects. Let's take a look at Forrest Whitley. This guy was a top pitching prospect at one point. Ended up getting Tommy John last year, so it's going to be a little bit before we see him again, but there's a lot of potential in Forrest Whitley. He's got a 60 fastball, 60 curve, 55 slider, 60 changeup, 55 cutter. The only problem is his control. He only has a 45 control. If we take a look at the numbers, he walks a lot of guys. So he is going to have to work on that. In the Arizona Fall League not too long ago, he actually did pretty well there. He was able to lower those walks before he got injured. So there is potential with Forrest Whitley. And I think for the Cubs, why not take a chance on it? With Ian Happ, sure. With Ian Happ, it's a pretty good bat to lose. But if you're the Cubs, you're planning towards the future. So hey, why not try and get a good young pitcher out of it? And then also Joe Perez too. That's a pretty good bat to get with Joe Perez. More of a power hitting kind of a guy. Hit 291, 18 homers, 61 RBIs, a 354 on base last season in the minor leagues. I mean, sure, the Chicago Cubs, as of right now, at third. You have Patrick Wisdom, but he's 30 years old. I mean, who knows? He only hit 231 last year. He had a bit of a run at one point at 28 home runs overall. But hey, 30 years old, why not take a look towards the future? Joe Perez could be a decent option for the Cubs down the road. hey, is you're a bit of a chance here. You're giving up on an Ian Happ, who is still only 26 years old, but maybe you can try and cash in on someone like a Forrest Whitley, get him to bounce back. Who knows, could be a future ace for your staff one day. Joe Perez could be a solid third baseman, and at least you're getting here a young outfielder in Chas McCormick as well. I think this would do good for both sides. And last but not least, the trade that I think needs to happen is the Yankees getting Matt Olson from the Oakland A's and going back to Oakland. They would be getting Oswald Peraza, Luis Gil, Davy Garcia, and Antonio Gomez. I think with the Yankees, if you're able to add someone like a Matt Olson, who had just an incredible season last year, hit 271, 39 homers, a 371 on base, a 146 WRC plus, a 5.0 wins above replacement. What an addition to this Yankees lineup that would be. First base was a bit of a revolving door last year for the New York Yankees, adding Anthony Rizzo from the Chicago Cubs. Luke Voigt was up and down. He's been up and down with injuries in his career. I think it's, if you can get someone like a Matt Olson, someone that's just going to be a solid everyday player at first base, someone that's under contract for the next couple of seasons, I think that would be huge for the Yankees. Maybe even try and get him signed to an extension. I mean, he's only 27 years old at this point. But going back to the Oakland A's, they're getting a nice package of prospects here. Oswald Peraza would be going back to Oakland, with Anthony Volpe emerging as the Yankees' top prospect last year with the season that he had. Hit 294 last year, 27 home runs, 86 RBIs, a 423 on base. Anthony Volpe, with those kind of numbers, that's looking pretty good for the Yankees. But Oswald Peraza is pretty good as well. Take a look at the numbers that he had. 297 average, 18 homers, 58 RBIs. He also had 38 stolen bases with a 356 on base. I think Oswald Peraza would be a very nice piece to go back to Oakland. They'd also be getting the number 4 prospect, Luis Gil. Actually was with the Yankees for a little bit last year. 6 starts, 3.07 ERA, 38 Ks over 29 innings. Overall in the minors last year, had a 3.97 ERA over those 71 innings. Good amount of strikeouts. Luis Gil, really solid pitching prospect to add. You would also be getting Davy Garcia in this deal. This guy really emerged for the Yankees in 2020, but then he started hitting some bumps, and he hasn't really found his way. He really struggled last year, a 6.48 ERA with the Yankees over 8 innings last season, and in the minors, over 22 starts, a 6.85 ERA. So a change of scenery may be good for Davy Garcia, but they're also beginning a catching prospect in the process here with Antonio Gomez. Still very far away with him, but with Antonio Gomez, you're getting a guy with a not much of a bat right now, but a really good arm, a 70 arm, just a cannon for an arm, and a 55 field tool. The Yankees, they have some catchers here in their system. Austin Wells, he's looking pretty good in the minor leagues, and you also have Josh Bro as well. So I think with someone like an Antonio Gomez, that's someone that's probably expendable in my opinion. Overall, I think this would be a great package for the Oakland A's for the future. Who knows what ends up happening with the Oakland A's, but I think for the Yankees to add a guy like a Matt Olson, I think that just makes your offense just so good. I think if you're the Yankees, go out, get Matt Olson. So those are the trades that I would like to see. Tell me what you think down below in the comments. Do you agree with any of them? Do you think they are just absolutely terrible? Let me know down below in the comments. But that's all I have for right now, everyone. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.